till the year 2020. The forecast made in the publication can help to prepare us for future challenges and seize the road ahead. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sampath. Ladies and gentlemen, I now have the pleasure of introducing Executive Director, Direct Marketing, Life Insurance Corporation of India, Mr. Vipin Anand.
Esteemed ladies and gentlemen of the audience, it is my proud privilege to extend to you all a very warm welcome on behalf of LIC of India and on my personal behalf. My heartiest congratulations to Dun & Bradstreet India on bringing out the third edition of India 2020 Economic Outlook. The publication, as its predecessors, is an excellent effort at analyzing the issues involved and opportunities available, and for creating a blueprint for realizing the Indian growth story to make India a real financial powerhouse by 2020. LIC of India, as the largest financial institution in the country, feels that we have an important role to play in this process, hence our association with this project. Our mission to explore and enhance the quality of life of people through financial security by providing products and services of aspired attributes with competitive returns, and by rendering resources for economic development. We are here because we believe in the future. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I now have the pleasure of introducing Chairman, National Statistical Commission, Dr. Pranab Sen.
Thank you. May I first express my gratitude to Dun & Bradstreet for inviting me to address this gathering. You know, most of growth theory and most of this kind of work is based on one growth model or another. Most of them have at their heart a focus on capital accumulation. And the way these models are set up, higher the capital accumulation, the better off you are. You know, of course, when you do things like projections and you say that I want a growth rate of 8% or 8.5% or whatever it is, you do a back calculation using an incremental capital output ratio, and lo and behold, you'll get a 38% investment requirement. The real issue is not that. The real issue, I think, is the pattern of development. Every instance of high capital accumulation growth strategies have essentially led to a worsening of distribution. They have been non-inclusive in a very real sense of the term. So when one talks about inclusive growth, one really needs to remember the historical experiences and to say that if that's what's happened with this particular model, it's going to happen to us. So where do we make these adjustments? You know, today, everybody compares 2013 to 1991 and goes into deep depression. But the real comparator is not 1991. It is actually 1999. A lot of you perhaps have forgotten that that was the low point of the Indian economy. 1999 to 2001 was the low point of the Indian economy where we were doing 4.2%. Well, we pulled out of it and went to 9.5% growth. Right? What happened? What was the driver? The National Highway Development Program, which in a sense set the ball rolling and then a lot of other things followed, started on a premise. And the premise was that you didn't have enough large corporates to carry out such an ambitious program. You needed to bring in smaller, more entrepreneurial players. 2005, did you gentlemen know that India had 42 million or 420 lakhs non-farm enterprises. Now, the same year, India had 72 million farms, which are also economic enterprises, right? So you had 114 million economic enterprises in the country where you had 220 million households. So you had a situation where there was one economic enterprise for every 2 households in this country. There is no country which is quite as entrepreneurial as this. And if we haven't been able to capitalize on it, that's our fault. And I think the model exists. The model was proven between 1999 and 2008. We just need to go back to the model and reinvigorate.
May I now introduce Chairman and Managing Director, Indian Overseas Bank, Mr. M. Narendra.
What's happening in the global, India cannot be away from that. That being the case, it is quite possible that temporarily the India's growth has come down. However, if we were little more careful and if we would have taken the right steps at the right time, we would have been able to maintain not the necessarily 8.5% average growth, but the growth would not have come to this level of lower growth. So let us look at the positively, let us look at optimistically, and let us stretch ourselves and work little more harder and little more smarter. I am sure India can come back. So I am a very optimistic person, and we in the banking industry have a lot of agenda for action, whether it in terms of human resource management, whether in terms of technological upgradation, whether it's in terms of rural reach, whether in terms of providing a good framework of risk management, or varieties of areas, which is challenging, but it is a very interesting. So we are looking the current challenging situation as an interesting proposition, and I am sure the team and our people who are here will join with me and our Dun & Bradstreet to take the India to the greater map. Wish you all the best.
Ladies and gentlemen, with that, we come to the formal release of the publication India 2020 Economy Outlook. The publication has been prepared with a view of providing a forecast of key macroeconomic variables which will determine the course of the business environment over the next few years.
I've been high, I've been low, I've seen smiles, so many miles, I've seen faces, so many places.
Chevrolet sale. More style than you expected. More admirers than you asked for. Chevrolet. Find new roads.
इंश्योरेंस खरीदने से पहले कंपेयर कीजिए policybazaar.com।
40 साल से आज तक बाथरूम में टॉवेल ले जाने का टाइम नहीं मिला आपको। मैं नहीं रही तो क्या करोगे, ये कभी सोचा है?
बिल्कुल नहीं सोचा, लेकिन मैं नहीं रहा तो तुम क्या करोगे ये जरूर सोचा है। हमारी मंथली रिटायरमेंट इनकम मेरे बाद सारी की सारी तुम्हारी, और मेरी तरह पूरा दिन
जब मंथली इनकम हो आपके लिए और आपके बाद आपकी वाइफ के लिए, तो मस्ती तो होगी ही। मैक्स लाइफ रिटायरमेंट प्लान्स। कांटेक्ट करें आपके सच्चे एडवाइजर से।
आज क्या बात है?
आनंद।
बड़े खुश लग रहे हो।
परम आनंद।
कुछ बताओगे भी?
निर्मल आनंद।
LIC जीवन आनंद, मैच्योरिटी पर सम एश्योर्ड और बोनस, उसके बाद भी जीवन भर इंश्योरेंस का भरोसा।
मिले हो? हम, तुम और वो तो आनंद ही आनंद।
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The Indian economy is in a tight spot. A tumbling currency, a jittery stock market, the risk of sub 5% growth, 10% inflation, a large current account deficit. I could go on and on. Are things as bad as 1991? Are things as bad as 1999? Some would argue yes, some would argue no. But there is one uncontestable statement. This is the time to act. And our panel this evening is going to draw up an action plan. A bold but feasible economic action plan. Welcome to India 2020, Need for Economic Agenda 2.0. It's tempting to talk about the current economic scenario, but today we're going to focus on solutions. So here's a straight question to each one of the panelists. And Mr. Richardson, you're going to set the tone. Here's my question. If you had to draft an economic agenda with 2020 in mind, what would you place on that agenda?
The top of the list would have to be infrastructure. I think it's very important for India to build the physical infrastructure and also the human capital infrastructure to allow development to take place over that horizon. I think, India has seen growth rates come down significantly over the past few years. Our sense is that potential growth rates have fallen also, and that's partly driven by the slowdown in investment. So in order to get potential growth rates back up and to get growth going again, we do think that it's important to get infrastructure investment going and also to build the human capital, because I think there is a demographic dividend available to India. It's there for the taking if India is able to capture it, seize it, and turn it to its advantage, both through financial intermediation, and for that I think it's very good that we've had some financial institutions here, including Life Insurance of India. But I also think it's important that you build the educational infrastructure to allow people to have the ability to do excellent, good jobs. And that's, I think, really the crucial thing over that horizon of 7 to 8 years.
So you put infrastructure, hard infrastructure and soft infrastructure, right up there on the agenda. Mr. Medvedev, the same question to you. You've got an opportunity to draft an economic agenda and place the priority list. What would you place on it?
So I would certainly agree with everything that Tom has put on the agenda, but I don't want to repeat that. Let me put something else on there, which was something that Dr. Sen mentioned in his comments, which is firm growth and support to entrepreneurship. Because at the end of the day, growth has to come from jobs, and where those jobs are going to come from, and what kind of jobs are those going to be. And in order to support job growth, what's really important is for firms to be able to start up, to grow, and sometimes also to exit.
I'm sure Mr. Chavda agrees with that. You interact with a number of small, medium-sized enterprises, but go beyond what Mr. Medvedev outlined. Add to that list, add to that agenda, add, from that granular ground experience that you have as well.
We need to give a boost to our manufacturing sector. Now, that is somewhere, we're losing track, particularly over the last few years. We have a national manufacturing competitiveness program in place, but I believe, and as I see mostly on paper, I think that really needs to put into action. We need to implement that. We need to bring it across to different clusters all over India. SMEs need a boost. Why should we have SEZs lying unutilized? Why can't we convert those to SME zones where SMEs can get right infrastructure and invest?
Sharad Kumar, on your list, what would be number one?
From my point of view, I think what India needs to pay greatest attention is prices, remunerative prices. And if we want to have investment in the infrastructure also, I think what is going wrong is that we are not paying attention to remunerative prices. The moment you guarantee them or you ensure that, they will be able to get good prices, you will have investment taking place.
Mr. Samir Kumar, infrastructure, close to your heart. Life Insurance Corporation of India has, a deep role to play in that space. And I think it's sort of emerging as the number one priority, the number one item on the agenda. Your thoughts?
One of the things that is very important for the country is that the slowdown in the insurance sector has to, somehow go. We have to look also at garnering funds through the pension sector, which is vastly undertapped in India. It's a vast sector which has not been tapped properly so far. And if we are able to effect some necessary reforms there in these two sectors and address some of the problems that are structural to the industry, I think we have a long way to go, and we will be able to provide very massively for the governmental investment in the infrastructure sector.
Mr. Agarwal, I deliberately kept my question to you last, and that's because currently, the financial markets are affected by sentiment, and current sentiment is fairly negative. So that's why my question to you is the most here and now. And here and now, if you had to draw up an agenda, what would you put on it?
Well, of course, we talk about the infrastructure investment. What I say that there has to be increased push on investment activity. A lot of projects are not just taking off. Investment is not happening. Entrepreneurs are not coming forward. Why they are not coming forward? Interest rates are very high. At this point of time, if you ask them to put capex, they know they can't just afford it. How can you afford a rate of 12% rate of interest? I mean, things are not just conducive. So you have to create a very conducive environment. So we need that entrepreneurship of India to be utilized to the fullest. We have to unravel that growth potential of the demographic dividend we have. These people have to be educated, they have to be healthy,
True.
They have to be employed. So all these things are needed.
Let's look into future India with BP, where energy makes